In this video, I want to share my thoughts about this Stuck in Tappan Falls video for 26 minutes. Some of you have seen it. I've watched it a few times. It's a really good video. They generally did a really good job, but there's so many little tiny things that are worth pointing out just for the sake of learning. So first of all, those of you that were in the video, that made the video, that published the video, thank you for sharing it, because this is how we learn. And all of us that are in some sort of incident or rescue, we're all making tiny mistakes. We're all doing things wrong. And it's good to have that to look back at later and get feedback on and share with everybody else for things that we could do differently. When I look at some sort of rescue, though, or some scenario that we create for a class, I'm really looking at four main things, because any rescue, again, we can nitpick. But there are four things I call the big picture scene safety that I think are sort of critical. I wrote them up here because we'll probably refer to them for a few times. The first thing is just establish a leader, put somebody in charge, whether that's the person in charge of the trip or they put somebody else in charge. Having leadership really matters. Otherwise, people start just doing random things, which can get out of control, which does happen in this video a little bit. I'm not sure if they established a leader. Next is set an upstream spotter. This is to tell traffic coming down there's things that are happening. You need to warn them, but if there's ropes in the water across the channel, you have an obligation to have some sort of upstream spotter. They did great here. Establish downstream safety. Have safety downstream to catch bags, things that come out, people, some sort of downstream safety. And then think about after. And this is the hardest one for me to always explain. This just is, think about once the thing gets fixed, how are we going to deal with it? Which just seems, it's hard to understand, hard to explain. It's just things, usually we do some sort of rescue and we don't think about what's next. And something happens that we're not ready for. So just think about after, think about the cleanup a little bit. And with that, I kind of want to get going into the video and just sort of start talking about it a little bit. So I'm going to press play here. Make sure I turn the audio down. There's good audio, but I'm not going to play the audio. This is Tappan Falls on the Middle Fork of the Salmon. It's a pretty sweet rapid. And the main line is over there on the right. This left line is actually a pretty cool line. It can be easier at some flows. People don't think to do it. But just to the right of where that kayaker went is the hole, right? There's a really easy to run far right side, right where that kayaker went. And just to the left of them is a pretty nasty hole that not enough people know how nasty it is. And it'll hold a raft, as we'll see, for a very long time. And it's a hazard. And it can be managed by scatting the rapid. This is a pretty easy, and they admit they made mistakes. And yes, we're going to learn from them. I'm going to share my opinions based on my training, my experience, my background. I might be wrong about everything. You can just leave in the comments or just talk bad about me later on. I could be totally wrong. I'm just going to share my opinions because that's what I do here on the internet. So again, this is Tappan Falls, 3.5-ish feet, and he goes right in the hole. And this hole is pretty nasty. And it's going to hold on to a boat for quite a while. And to me, right away, we have what I'm going to call a rescue. There's a person in a bad place, right? This person we don't want them there. The equipment, I'm not as concerned about. Of course, we'd like to get our equipment back, but I'm worried about the safety of this person. And when this happens, I think to myself, again, let's establish a leader. And it's really hard to do when everybody's spread out everywhere. But ideally, somebody takes charge. Some people are taking video, some dude's getting in the kayak. But somebody needs to be like, hey, I'm in charge. Hey, I have a plan. Listen to me. Otherwise, things do get kind of out of control. I'm not sure if that happened, but people did, start doing things. You'll notice bags are floating down. Looks like they used Aaron's breakaway method, which is a technique. If you don't tie your bags in, they might be safer if they fall out and get rescued by people. Who knows? But bags are coming out, and it looks like kayakers are going downstream, and they did send an upstream spotter. I think they maybe mention it here in a second, but somebody is going upstream to tell boats coming down there's a problem, right? You wouldn't want boats to kind of come into this not knowing somebody's surfing this hole. And then think about after. This is a point to start thinking, when this boat comes out, what's going to happen? Well, if it just comes out, no big deal. The guys in the boat, we're fine. But what if he swims? Who's going to rescue him? Is there somebody with a throw bag? Is there somebody in a kayak ready to rescue him? What if he hits his head and goes unconscious? How is he going to get rescued after the thing happens? And the boat, what if the boat flips? How are we going to manage a boat flip if the boat flips and comes out? So think about the aftermath. To manage that, you would have people downstream ready to go to help him if he's hurt or unconscious, or even if he's fine, to rescue him, and to get the boat to shore so it doesn't just float indefinitely. So here he is. He's surfing. We're 2.22 minutes, 29, 30 seconds. I'm glad they speeded up in a bunch. I love the bag counter, how many bags have fallen out. That's the 5th bag that's come out. I'm not sure if they weren't tied in or they were just tied in poorly, but they're coming out. And all those bags coming out are taking resources. People need to be downstream rescuing bags. And hopefully they're not chasing them too far so they can just get them to shore and still be a downstream safety net. So the first thing the guy in the boat does is go for a throw bag. You see a throw bag in his hand. And the first thing I'm going to point out is right now he's fairly stable. Like, it's not the best position. And if he wanted to be safe and take care of himself, he should just jump out at this point. Like, he can jump out. This is not a bad swim to shore, and they can wait for the raft, right? If his safety is paramount, he could just jump out. The things that could happen to him, like the things that can make this worse, is if he gets tangled in something on the boat, if there's some sort of loop, some sort of webbing he gets tangled in, if there's a non-locking carabiner or a screw gate carabiner that's not locked, he could fall on and get clipped into. That could be an entrapment. If he got his foot tangled in some sort of loose line, or if he starts to deploy a throw bag, which he's about to do, that throw bag in his hand is just a snake. It's just this thing just waiting to entrap him. And for me, when I'm surfing a hole like this, I don't want a loose line around me. If that boat was to flip right now and you went underwater and that rope just came loose, it could bound you in a way that is really dangerous. And so we went from a situation, what I'm worried about here is right now it's not that bad, right? Again, he can just jump out. He's fine. Anytime we add ropes to this, we're putting him in danger because he can fall out, wrap himself up, and get in trouble. So what they're doing right now, I'm not super jazzed on because he has an open rope in his hand. If that boat was to flip, which it could flip any time, he could get tangled in the rope. So he's trying to throw the bag. Throw bags are hard to throw. They take practice. As you'll see in this video, really almost nobody in this trip knows how to throw a throw bag. You'll see there's a throw counter. They miss all kinds of throws. And some key things, and now the guy's on the boat with a rope that's out of the bag. So to me, that's really hazardous. This whole thing right now, this rope that he can get tangled in is a huge hazard, right? And again, he didn't make the throw. It's not helping him, but they're going to ropes right away. And so, when you're stuck in a hole like this, my general take is, let's just let the boat come out on its own. Like, let's wait. It may never, eventually it's going to come out. Maybe it might be July, but I imagine if you wait a few hours, eventually something will happen and they'll come out. So if I was in charge here, I'd probably just tell the guy to swim and we'll just set up lunch and wait an hour for it to come out. Because this rope now, again, this rope that he has in his hand, to me is a sizable hazard. We've just made this situation more dangerous. All right. And he keeps missing his throws. Again, throwing a coiled rope from a not stable platform, very hard to do. And now the guys on shore are trying to throw a rope to the guy in the kayak. And another bad throw. So these are underhand throws. Those NRS throw bags are very hard to throw. If they were practiced with better throw bags, doing overhand, they could probably make these throws. But they're not, which is fine. I think what they're trying to do here is to have the raft get a rope to the guy on the rock, and the shore get a rope to the guy on the rock, attach them so that they can pull from shore the raft out. That's a decent strategy, I think, that they have. I think it's really hard to execute because you have to make two throws to the guy on the rock, which is very hard to do. And the guy has to hold both ropes and connect them. I think it's tough. I think they're going to find this very tough to do. So it looks like those guys on shore are now, let's go back a sec. It looks like they're now going upstream. Let's see if we get to that spot. Right back there. It looks like they're going upstream maybe to be upstream spotters, I'm guessing. And there's rafts up there. So they might have walked down and then somebody said, hey, go be an upstream spotter. So now we have them hopefully stopping traffic upstream. And now we've got all these ropes in the water. And again, ropes are dangerous. So, and I think she's realized, oh, now the guy got the rope to the guy on the rock, which kayaking out to that rock and getting on the rock is tough. Like that's hard work. So good job for him doing that. He's sort of become the intermediary between the shore and the raft, and managing this rope is hard. It's going to be hard to do. And for him to hold on to this rope while the raft gets him a rope is tough. So somebody's saying stop. Oh, now this is upstream spotter. He's saying stop traffic. This is also a super interesting thing that happens. A sweep boat comes down the river. This is a middle fork of the salmon. There are these sweep boats on the river, and they're trying to tell this person to stop. Well, sweep boats don't stop. They don't. I mean, whoever he or she is on this boat might be able to stop, but getting that sweep boat right there into this eddy is a very difficult thing with these boats. And then having it leave the eddy and run the rapid responsibly, safely is probably the hardest part. Like leaving eddies is really hard. This sweep boat really does need to run the rapid. Those spotters needed to stop the sweep boat way upstream in order for him to realistically stop. So the sweep boat driver saying is probably just ignoring them. And the sweep boat has a decent line of sight. Now, if the sweep boat was going over here, there's a rope in the water. That might be a problem. And the sweep boat probably sees the line of sight and sees there's no rope in the way of where he's going to go, and sees a clean line, is like, you know what? It's much safer for me. I understand there's something going on, but it's much safer for me to just run the right side, which I see is clear. Hopefully, if there was a rope there, the sweep boat driver would know. But the sweep boat driver, this is easy to miss. If I'm on a sweep, it's very easy to miss this raft. Like if a sweep went on where the raft was, that would be a problem for the sweep. So they go through anyway and have a delightful little line through the correct way, the way you should go, which is over here on the right side. So good job, sweep boat. Made it through. And we still have the raft stuck in the river. So here he goes, trying to throw the rope. Again, this really makes me nervous because, again, it's a guy in an unstable spot with a rope that he can get tangled in. It's just really scary to me. So I think at some point, now it looks like he's the guy on the rock. Oh, so now there's a rope attached to the raft that's just downstream. So if you see there's this rope here, he's just let it go. Now, an interesting strategy I've thought about before with this, and I've used this strategy before, is if there's a rope right here, if you could get a raft attached to that rope somehow, which is hard to do, you could potentially pull it out from downstream. I've seen that it's happened to me. I've been stuck in a hole like that in a paddle boat, and a raft attached to a rope like that and pulled me out. It worked great, but it's hard to communicate. Again, trying to throw bags, missing again, it's just a hard throw. There's a butterfly. That was kind of cool. It's a tough throw to get out there. But now there's people on river right, and the distance to the raft from river right is less from river left. So this is where, again, if we had established a leader to begin with, a leader might have looked at this whole situation and been like, hey, the left side, it's too much. It's just, I'm not sure how we're going to get a rope from the left side. Let's just go to the right. Maybe somebody did that. Maybe there was a leader that said, hey, let's just send all of our resources to the right because that side's going to be easier to pull from. The thing now, though, as they're going to try to put a rope from the shore to the boat, they're now clogging the main place people go. So they have to stop traffic. Once they get the rope out to the boat, because if another sweep boat comes, this is where the sweep boat's going to come. The sweep boat will need to stop when there's a rope in the river. So there's some people here with some swiftwater rescue knowledge or some rope knowledge. They're going to do some rope things from the right side. And here's Guy in a kayak on the rock. At this point, if I'm Guy in the kayak on the rock, I'm not really useful where I'm at. Like, this isn't a good spot. And so I'm going to pause it for a second. Guy on a kayak right there, he's much more useful downstream to provide downstream safety. If the person falls out of that raft and the guy on the rock throws we'll see him do it a little bit, throws a throw bag. It's too quick. Like, guy won't notice a throw bag, and the person on the rock can't hold the person. Like, there's not a stable place to belay yourself there. So this kayaker at this point is out. They're done pulling from the left side, is much better positioned in this eddy where if the swimmer comes out, he can go out and provide safety for the swimmer. But of course, he's going to stay on the rock because it's a good view. That was a decent throw. Does he get it? And he gets it. So they get the rope. It's much easier to throw from the right shore than standing on a rock. And it's also really hard to throw from the raft. The raft is moving. It's not stable footing. Throwing from the raft is tough. And now this guy, my assumption is, let's clip the throw bag to the raft and then pull on the raft. But he's just going to hold on to the rope with his hands while they pull on him, which hopefully pulls the raft. My worry here, and I can't tell, is that and I think I saw him maybe do it, is that he wrapped the rope around his arm, which is a big no-no. I don't know how he holds this rope without wrapping it around his hand. Maybe he did, but this is not a time to wrap any rope around your arm to be a hero. So hopefully he didn't do that, but I want to point out wrapping your rope around your hand is not a great idea. So they're pulling. It takes a lot of force. It's not easy to get a raft stuck in a hole out, but this is a decent attempt. And at this point, just downstream on the right is not the best place to bring a swimmer to, but guy in the raft could just jump out, and he's attached to a rope. Well, hopefully he's just holding onto a rope, not attached, but he's attached to he could save himself right now. He could just get out and wait. That's what I was thinking right now. Like, what if he just fell out? At least you got the person in the boat safe on shore, and you can wait for the raft to come out later. And it does turn out these things, like, it doesn't look like the raft will ever come out, but eventually they do. Like, I've been in part of some of these where I thought the raft was never going to leave. I've been in these situations before where the person rowing fell out and the raft was just there, and we thought it would never come out. And eventually it does. Like, it might take an hour, but eventually it does. So what they're doing now, they couldn't pull enough. They have this is kind of a cool thing. They have this rope going through a carabiner, and that's providing some friction so they can maintain, I'm not sure if they did this on purpose or not, but they did this so they can do a little bit of progress capture. Like, if they pull, that carabiner, holds some of the progress of them pulling, which is kind of nice. The only thing here is people should be upstream of the rope, which the one guy we see is downstream of. It's not the worst because he's at the anchor, but it's good. And there's a guy upstream of the rope right there. And now he was downstream of the rope. And so he let go. So going back, sorry, I got to catch this. There's so many details here. They're pulling. You see the foot. So right there, that foot, whoever that is, right now is downstream of the rope. And we should be cognizant to not be downstream of ropes. And so for this moment, that person's downstream. If they came free, that person would get wiped out by the rope. You can see right there, that person's pulling and they're downstream of the rope, which is not best practices. So he lets go. It's just really hard to hold a rope that's being pulled in. And hopefully he wasn't wrapped around, but whatever. So they have to get another bag to the boat. And this is where, as a person on the boat, it's nice if you have a carabiner in your PFD. Yeah, the rock guy's like, "Do you want to throw a bag? Let me try this. Let me try throwing it from this side again." I'd give up on the left side if it was me, which I think they do. But the next time this guy gets a throw bag, he needs to attach it to the raft. And ideally, in this case, I'd probably go to the frame. If it was a wrap, I'd go D-rings over a frame usually. But even if you attach it to a frame, that's going to be fine in the situation. But the person in the raft ideally has a carabiner on them. And a lot of the modern throw bags have a carabiner in the throw bag. So if you throw the throw bag, there's a carabiner at the end of the loop and like a padded pouch. So if you have a modern throw bag, there's already a carabiner ready to go. The next rope that goes to this, does this rope from this side make it? Okay, so this next rope, hopefully they learn their lesson. It should attach itself. They should carabiner it on. What happens here is actually amazing, and it was their saving grace. I want to show that again. So it looks like this throw bag. I'm not sure what happened there. They throw the bag, and it's a miss, but somehow it magically attaches to the raft. And I've been in this situation before where I get like a raft surfing, and we're throwing bags at it over and over and over, hoping it will attach. When you're trying to do this, when there's nobody in the boat, it's almost impossible. It's impossible. Like, I've never been able to do it. I mean, you fill the bag with rocks and you try to have it catch on something. It's the only thing you can do when you're waiting for half an hour. But somehow this is the first time I've ever seen it. This rope attaches to the raft on its own. And if you listen to the audio, they even say like, oh wow, that's somehow attached. My guess is that it attached to this oar tower somehow, or I don't even know. But they got super lucky, right? That it attached, which is what they needed. I'm not sure if the guy in the raft knew how to attach. I've been in situations before also where the person on the raft, we've thrown them a rope and they don't know how to attach the rope to the raft. Like, they don't know how carabiners work or how to tie knots. We had to like hand signal them, carabiner, attach it to rope, attach a D-ring. On a surf one time on the American above tunnel chute, we had to talk somebody through attaching a rope to a boat in a surf like this. Maybe he knew how to do it, maybe he didn't. But now they have a rope attached to the boat. They don't know how it's attached, so at any moment it could come off. It turns out it's pretty rigidly attached, but if you pull hard enough, it might pull it out. But they got super lucky again. Like, this is really cool. They got this on film. My favorite part of the whole video is this: the rope that magically attached to the raft, and to know that it is possible. So, guy in the raft, and I was just hanging out. At this point, if I was guy on the raft, he's pointing more bags have gone down. I'd probably jump out. If I was on the raft, the rope was attached. I don't want to be around it anymore. There's so many things you can get snagged on. It can flip and you can get hurt. I just want out. This swim is so chill. If the rope's attached, I'm jumping out, but it stays in. And now they're setting up an anchor system on this side so that they can do some sort of mechanical advantage cool stuff. So they're finding that just pulling isn't enough. And they set up a pulley, and I'm not sure. This pulley is basically doing nothing. Let's go back just a second if I can. This pulley, it's a redirect, which allows them to pull in a different direction, but it's not adding mechanical advantage. So it's kind of nice though. It's kind of a cool party trick, and it's the beginning of a 3-to-1. So it's good to set it up, and then if you need more power, use a 3-to-1. The one thing I want to point out is this anchor is not very good. The rule I'm going to use for anchors is 5 and alive, 5 inches thick and alive. This is alive, but I don't think that's 5 inches thick. And I've been on the Middle Fork a couple years ago. We did a Z rig for a sweet boat, and we pulled one of these out of the ground as we were pulling, which is not good form. And so at a minimum, and the one thing about rescue too is we're always in a hurry to do it. So it's like, just quickly attach to that and it'll be fine. I would have done this lower at the trunk because it's less of a lever arm to pull it out. It's like when I use the term lever arm, it's a physics term. Hopefully you know what that means. And also it's thicker down below. And so I would have taken the time at this point to put it around the base of this and maybe get as much tree trunk as I can, because I'm worried about pulling this thing out, which is like from a leave no trace thing. Good. We don't want to be pulling trees out. And also it's not fun when you're pulling something and the tree comes out. It's kind of sketchy. So these people, it looks like they're using stuff that they have in their PFDs. Like I don't think they have a rescue kit with them. I think, which is a good reason to carry pulleys, prussics, carabiners, slings with you so that you have access to this stuff when you need it quickly. So I'm guessing that's what happened. I don't see like a bag full of stuff, and they're missing some key things. And now they're just pulling it through the carabiner or through the pulley. The one thing we're going to talk about in a second that they could do is attach a prussic from that carabiner to the rope that will capture progress, right? That way, like if they let go, it stops. And this pulley, with it being round at the end, is fine, but ideally it has a square end, so it's a progress capture pulley. Let's see if I have one here. Yeah, I have one here. Let me go into the thing. Ideally, it's one of these. Oh, I need to make this all bigger. Let's go back to here. Let me make myself bigger really quick. It's one of these right here that's squared off that captures progress, and that way when the prussic hits it, it kind of butts up against it and stops. But let's go back to here. Now you can see this one's rounded off like that. And so squared off is better, but this is fine. But if there's a prussic going from this carabiner to this rope right here, they can capture the progress. Even if somebody manually does it with their hand, that's going to work. Instead, you can see they're sort of struggling with it to keep their progress. And if this guy's, well, we'll see in a second, if fingers end up near that pulley, like if they let go, let's go back to this spot here. No, I forgot. We'll see in a second. If they let go, fingers can get caught in that pulley and somebody can get hurt. So did I go? Yeah, I'm in the right place. So there's a rope over there. They're doing some things. Guy's hanging on. Oh, and one cool thing here, guy on the rock. This is a good position for the guy. He's with the paddle. When the paddle's up in the air like that, that means stop, right? When we don't have a paddle and we just do arms out, that stop. But when you have a paddle, hand up in the air, the paddle sideways means stop. So hopefully there's upstream spotters somewhere up there. Hopefully there still are, but he's now acting as an upstream spotter. So that's one reason it's not bad that he's on the rock. I again would rather have him be downstream safety at this point, but now he's acting as a downstream spotter. Hopefully there are others, because there's a rope in the water now. They have a responsibility. As soon as they have a rope spanning the river like that, they have a massive responsibility to stop boaters. Boaters can't just accidentally come into that. So they really need to focus on the upstream spotter, which needs to be more than just to do here. Somebody up there with the whistle and stop, rope in the water. Okay, so let's keep going to what's going on. Hopefully that group does stop, I'm pretty sure. And the group on the shore is now setting up some sort of 3-to-1. Here we go. So they've decided they need mechanical advantage. Not a bad idea. I'm not against it here. The one thing that is a little nerve-wracking is they're going to start pulling with a lot of force, and they don't know how that rope is attached to the boat. So they could pull really hard and it come loose, and potentially the rope and the stuff at the end of the rope could fire back at the people pulling. It's just a possibility. A way to mediate that is to just throw some sort of, like, I went too far back, some sort of PFD or something on the rope to dampen it. That's a way to mediate it. But I think it's fine here. I'm not too worried about it because I don't think the forces are going to be that big. But they're going to use the 3-to-1 to pull, and they quickly get to the end here. And at this point, they need to move the prussic out further down the rope so they can keep pulling. And if you know about 3-to-1s, you should know about this. Again, there should be a prussic between here and the rope so they can capture the progress. They don't have to do what they're about to do. They're going to start holding it with their hand, right? He's going to hold it and it goes back to them. You see back there, he moved the pulley out. All goes. There's so many things happening so fast. They're pulling. They get to the end. Now they have to hold the rope with their hands, which they could do with the prusik if they had one there. But they're going to hold it, which is kind of sketchy. And then this guy here, if you watch him, is now moving that prusik out so they have more room. That's how it's done. Beautifully done. And that allows them to keep pulling in more progress. Maybe that's the wrong word. Keep pulling more rope. So they're going to pull. And they're having a much better time because they have, 3-1 theoretical advantage, more like 2-1 probably with all this gear. But again, they pull in more progress. More bags going away. It's 11 bags. Wow. They pull in more rope. 13 bags. And so what they're going to do here now is, again, they have to move that prusik with the pulley down the rope again because they've pulled it in. And they're going to hold it with their hands to hold the tension with their hands, which is kind of sketchy because if his fingers get caught in this pulley, it could be bad. Like, I don't think I'm very excited about that, actually. And so they're holding it tight. It's a lot of force on there. It's dynamic force because the boat's moving. He pulls it out, but you can even see him look at his hand. Like, something happened there. His hand, like, got caught in something. You could lose a finger doing that. I'm not excited about that. It just takes a simple prusik to set that up. You could do that with a flip line. Like, you don't need a prusik loop. You could use a flip line to capture that progress too, if you knew what you were doing. So flip lines make good flip lines make good prusiks. So they get it out, and when it comes out, it flips. I did not see this coming. I'm not sure if the rope is the reason it flipped or it was just due to flip. Because based on the way they're pulling, I don't think it should flip. But it did. And this is the outcome of most surfs. Like, most of the surfs, when they come out, it comes out because they flip. And then when it's upside down, it comes out no problem. So when I see some sort of raft surfing in a hole, I'm thinking, when I'm in this situation, let me go back to me. When I'm in here, think about after. As soon as I see a raft surfing a hole like that, I'm thinking this thing will probably flip. Let's have a plan for that happening, right? Let's plan on it flipping. Hopefully it doesn't, but it almost always does. So that's what the think about after is. So before we go on to the rest of what happens, I want to point out, I just talked about a lot of little details, like little positioning things, prusiks, all kinds of ideas, my opinions based on my experience. Every situation is different. This is just me sharing thoughts that I have while we're watching it. I'm an imperfect person giving you my best knowledge I have based on having been a part of a lot of these things. And just a lot of little tidbits. And in the moment, I make mistakes too. When I'm in a risky situation, sometimes I make mistakes. I forget to do things. Adrenaline's up. All the things are going on. None of us are perfect. And all the things they did, I think, were generally good. The two big things that make me nervous were the guy on the raft with the rope. There's him with having a rope in his hand that's just out. That's a big thing. That one makes me really nervous. And then also them pulling the rope next to the pulley, I was worried about them losing a finger, right? But other than that, like, everything was fine. It wasn't crazy. I want to point out the big things though are here. This is the big things I care about. Did they establish a leader? Did somebody take charge? Did they set an upstream spotter? They seem to have done that. Did they have downstream safety? I'm pretty sure they did because they're pulling the bags. Did they think about it after? Probably not. Maybe they did. But this is the stuff I'm going to judge on. Did you do these things? I think that's the big thing. And I think they did a good job. They weren't perfect, but they did a better job than most. So let's go back to the video and watch the aftermath of what happens. It's pretty cool. So the boat flips. Immediately, my brain is like, guy under let's find him. Let's hope he didn't get attached to the boat somehow. Let's hope he didn't somehow clip onto the boat or get entangled. He's free right now. I'm happy. And then is he okay? Right? Let's make sure he's okay. Ideally, for me, there is a person in a boat downstream here. A kayak would be awesome because there's a bunch of kayakers who's dedicated to helping this person get to shore and make sure they're okay. I don't think there is. That's the downstream safety part. The guy on the rock is going to throw a throw bag right now, which I'm going to say is a bad idea for a number of reasons. One, this guy barely has his senses right now. Any rope thrown at him, he won't see or know is coming. There's no way he's ready for it. And two, guy on the rock is you can't belay from there. If you're holding onto a person on that rock with a rope, you're going to get pulled off, or you're going to let go. And now guy in the water is in the water with a rope, which is dangerous. So I'm not excited about this rope though that's about to happen. Guy on the rock should get in his kayak and just go help instead of throwing the rope. And once he throws the rope, he's now probably going to like not pack it back in the bag before he gets in his kayak. So he's about to just throw the rope in his kayak and then go kayaking. And he is now has a big entanglement hazard around him. Okay. A lot of words, a lot of things going on, but you see right here, he throws this rope. Recognize that where he's at, if the person grabs the rope, he's really not going to be able to hold on to him. This guy's either going to get pulled in or let go of the rope. Being able to hold on to somebody in swift water from that position, I don't think it's possible, right? And I'm not sure he's thought about where he's going to swing him to. Me knowing the river pretty well, the guy's not going to an awesome place. Like he's way better off just swimming in the middle of the river than being pulled into the shore where there's fast currents. So, of course, luckily he misses. He sits down, but luckily he misses. It's not even close. Now that right at this point, there's so many ropes in the water. And kayak guy on the rock is pulling his rope in while the raft goes downstream. And there's a lot of people on shore hanging out, and there's a raft going downstream. This is where the think about after is always comes up. In almost every rescue situation, we didn't really think about what happens after the thing occurs, after the thing gets done. And right now there's just a raft passing everybody downstream. Ideally, there's a plan for this. There's a kayak in the water or something, somebody maybe on that rock way down there who could swim to it and jump on it and flip it over. I don't know. There should be a plan for this. And at this point, everybody is kind of rushed, like, oh man, we got to deal with that. You can see guy on the rock. Oh, he did stuff the bag. So he had to stuff the bag. That's cool. You saw him stuff the bag there. So he stuffed the bag, but it's taken him time. Who knows how much time this was? Maybe like a few minutes. But if he had not been on the rock, he could have been down there, been rowing guy's safety, and been like with the raft already. So that's where the think about after matters. So he launches. This is tough duty too, by the way. Like it was tough getting on that rock. It's hard getting off of that rock as well. So super impressive kayaking skills there. And luckily there's a little bit of flat water here and the raft moves really slow. But now you have, it looks like a couple kayakers. Here's the swimmer. He should be on shore. I'm not sure why he's still in the river. Somebody needs to do the, hey, swim to shore, swim to shore, swim to shore. He doesn't need to be just like floating downstream casually. I'm sure kayaker guy's like, are you okay? Are you okay? And he's like, I'm okay. But I mean, this is cold water. He's wearing a short sleeve shirt. He's been surfing for a while. He needs to get on shore. He needs to get rescued by somebody. But these two kayakers go downstream after the raft. And when this happens, the raft is usually, there's another, was that a kayaker or like a ducky? Let's go back. There's somebody right there coming up. So they're following him down. Again, I'm just nitpicking. Like these are tiny things, but so there's somebody in a kayak. So they have somebody's jumping in the kayak, and there's a bag right there floating down. The raft eddies itself out. This is the second lucky thing of the day. The first lucky thing was the rope that magically attached to it. Now it eddied itself out, which is, and maybe this kayaker who has the rope attached, let's just see if we can catch it. This kayaker in front of us, pulling a raft ashore from a kayak is really hard to do. So I don't think this kayaker just kayaked up to it and pulled it to shore. I'm pretty positive that didn't happen. Yeah, he got to it right there and he grabbed the rope. So the raft here eddied itself out miraculously on this tiny eddy. And if it keeps going, there's like a few big rapids it's probably going to go through before anybody else gets it. So the first lucky thing again was like attaching the rope to the raft. The second thing is it just kind of pulls itself over. And in my brain right now, my concern is I know there's a rope attached to this raft right now. There's a rope in the water. So I'm just in the back of my head. I'm always nervous about ropes. There is a rope somewhere down there floating. There's a hazard for somebody. So kayaker saves this dry bag, which is hard to do. Like, look how hard it is to save the dry bag. Imagine saving a raft. Like, he barely got that dry bag to shore. And then the raft, well, it didn't like staying in the eddy, so it's coming down. And this is the move. The kayaker dude here, this is heroic. Getting out of your kayak that fast is hard to do. It takes a lot of agility to just quickly get out of your kayak, throw your paddle up, throw the raft up. And now he has to catch this super heavy boat and pull it in. And this is burly. This is impressive work right here. Getting in. This is not easy. Second kayaker, same thing, jumps in. Oh, he lets go, but second kayaker gets it. This is very hard to do. So the first kayaker dude started to slow it down, but it's so much force he let go. But he did enough so second kayaker get it to shore, and they get it to shore. And if there's no kayakers here, this is not, it might be a while before this boat stops. So they get it, which is pretty cool. And they decide to flip it on their own, which is impressive. Like, I'm guessing these kayakers are river guides because they have the ability to quickly flip this raft. And most gear boats like this, like 14, 16-foot gear boats, two tallish people shouldn't have much of a problem flipping it over with the right equipment. So this kayaker has this flip line situation. We should ideally all be carrying some sort of line like this with us. And he's going to clip it in somewhere and is trying to go around. It looks like the oar tower falls out. I would just go, you could just attach it to this perimeter line. Or, I mean, I would go for a D-ring maybe, but the perimeter line's probably fine. But he's going to wrap it around the oar tower and get his flip line ready to go. Other kayaker dude, again, having a sling like that for a lot of uses, but for flipping boats is pretty sweet. He attaches, pulling the oars off, again, super helpful. He attaches his flip line. This is how it's done. I mean, two dudes, two flip lines, lean back. It's nice to get this done quickly, to just kind of get it done. There's two techniques here. One guy with the green kayak has a straight line where he's just holding onto the rope. I like this loop method myself because it's easier to hold onto a loop. But some people would say that loop is a hazard because you get tangled in it. It's a trade-off. But it's way easier to pull on a loop, in my opinion, than a straight rope. But they both do fine. They lean back. Again, two tallish guys, two guys of medium, slightly larger than medium size, can usually flip a gearboat over. You can tell they've done it before. That's just solid. That's how it's done. And yeah, they get that thing back over, empty some water out of the bags. People have a lot of wet stuff tonight. And they go, it looks like, from what I can tell, they walk their kayaks back up. They go back upstream to regroup. And kayaker dude looks like carries his kayak back up, which is a little ways. It's no picnic. But they have a little meeting and move on. So I'm sure they debriefed in the evening. But that's the whole situation. I really appreciate this video being posted. And kayaker dude decided to kayak it again, which is, just plain fun. So to finish this up, this is a cool video. I'm pretty jazzed that I have this to share thoughts on. Just to reiterate one more time, I know it probably seemed like I was nitpicky, and I was. There was like all kinds of little things, all things I'm excited to share my thoughts about with with those of you that who watch this. But to reiterate one more time, the really important things, the big picture things are, when this happens, establish a leader, set an upstream spotter, have downstream safety, and think about after. So that's it for this episode. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.